So how do we discern if indeed we are called to be church planters, whether individually or those we're walking with who are praying about that calling? There are three vital components, not limited to these, but certainly always including these three that we want to think about. Three vital components that need to resonate in the heart and life of a church planter. First of all, aspiration. Now that's a great word because it reminds us that breathing is important, right? So you got to be alive, but more clearly, aspiration. Think of that in terms of your own sense of internal calling. In fact, historically, being called into vocational ministry involves those two issues, an internal call and an external call, which we'll talk about in a minute. But an aspiration presupposes the motivation of the gospel. Why would you want to plant a church? The president of Westminster Seminary, where I went, his name was Edmund Clowney, and he used to say to the student body, if you can do anything other than be a pastor, go for it, because that will absolutely be an essential component in discerning if you're called or simply bored or wanting to validate your existence by planting a church. So aspiration, what is in your heart? Do you love Jesus first and foremost, the head of the church? Do you love the church? We're in a culture today where we need to increasingly make sure that from Scripture we see the centrality of churches in the history of redemption. Secondly, alongside of aspiration, there's adequacy. Now, I may have wanted to go to Harvard University, but my SAT did not qualify me. There was a limitation of adequacy. So when we think about adequacy to be a church planter, it's always good to look at the Scriptures in terms of the qualifications for deacons and elders. And as we read through the list, we realize there are some specific giftings that are important. Stuff like being apt to teach, other qualifications. You're probably familiar with those. But what really stands out in the Scripture in terms of adequacy is your heart and your life, your character. This is a vital part. It doesn't mean you'll ever be good enough to plant a church, but it does mean make sure your in Christness is showing up in terms of how you are already known. Part of your adequacy will be demonstrated by the fact that you're walking in a church right now. You are committed to a local church, and those around you are also bearing witness to what is emerging as a longing and a recognition of gifting. And that really leads us to the third component of what it means to be a church planter. It is this affirmation. And affirmation is not your grandmother saying, "Attaboy, go do this, sweetheart." I'm glad for grandmothers, by the way. I had a very godly one. But the affirmation of truly those that know your heart, your art, your giftings. Because you see, church planting is not a solo calling at all. It's tragic when we strike out on our own and to do something as important, as exhausting, as demanding as being a church planter. So listen to the godly men and women that are woven into your story. Pay attention to those who are in a position to call into question your sense of calling. Don't see people standing in your way. If they give you pushback, welcome, as the old NIV translated one of the verses in Proverbs, welcome life-giving rebukes. If there's just some work in the Spirit in your life that will further give evidence to your gifts, your maturity, etc., celebrate that. So again, remember these three: what's in your heart, this internal calling, who are you becoming in terms of your journey of becoming more like Jesus, and listen to your community. Trust all three of these like important harbor lights that we want to line up, moving into the incredibly important waters of church planting in light of the day when Jesus returns to finish making all things new. Thank you for your willingness to pray. Thank you for your willingness to wait.